Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is Unsung Hollywood Season 3. This is the series premiere, and this episode is about Ice-T. Now, we just saw during the, I think it was the closing of season, well, actually not the closing, but, pretty much the mid-season of season 11 of Unsung. They chronicled Ice-T, and they chronicled his career as the founding member or one of the founding fathers of gangster rap. But in this episode of Unsung Hollywood, they actually chronicled his career as an actor, because not only is he one of the founding fathers of gangster rap and hip-hop, he's also, one of those actors, one of those hip-hop artists who transcended into acting, and he was one of the first to do it. Someone said in this episode that Will Smith needs to be thanking Ice-T every single day that he has an acting career, because Ice-T was one of the first rappers to transcend into acting. And it's been a phenomenal ride for Ice-T, because he's been playing, Finn Tortiola on Law and Order SVU for 17 years, which makes him the longest running black actor on television. So that's definitely a feat. And this episode chronicled some of his, early life, from, being from New Jersey to losing his parents to, his life in L.A., how he, was introduced to Iceberg Slim and, the art of rhyming and the art of poetry. That's where he initially, got his muse was from Iceberg Slim. And Iceberg Slim's books are phenomenal. I have to say so myself. And then he said that, he realized from an early age that he loved entertaining people. So this actually, was a vehicle that he used to entertain. When he would, spit his rhymes, and he would be spitting, rhymes that were that he would read from some of the Iceberg Slim books. So I thought that was really cool. And he said that Ice-T was his actual alter ego, because when he's himself, he's Tracy, but then his alter ego, Ice-T, is pretty much inspired by, not only, his influence of Iceberg Slim, but also, the character of who he is. Like Ice-T is a part of who he is. So I thought that was really cool that, how his alter ego has completely built this new life for him. And in 1976, he had joined the Army, and while he was in the Army, he was DJing, and he also was rapping, and he realized early on that he was greater at rapping than he was at DJing. And like after he, got back from the Army, he started, pimping and robbing banks, and it was when he got into a car accident that he that's when the light bulb went off and said that, okay, if you want to be in the game, you have to be around for the game. So all this crazy shit that I'm doing, which could either leave me in jail or dead, that's going to screw me up. So now I had to change my approach and also, get into the game where I can actually last and make something out of it, which was definitely, a smart decision. I mean, he pretty much learned the principle of self-preservation. And, he also was doing, he was also rapping at this underground, this underground club called The Radio, where he was actually discovered to appear in the movie Breakin'. Now, I definitely talked about this in my Unsung review of Ice-T, that Breakin' is like one of my all-time classic favorite movies. Me and my brother used to watch Breakin' all the time growing up. Breakin' and Breakin' 2 Alleged Boogaloo. Ice-T premiered in both movies, and he was kind of like the soundtrack for the movie. He didn't have any lines, but he took the role seriously. He came to work on time, and he delivered. And, this was pretty much the groundbreaking that started it all. And then he also talked about, how his music career began in 1987 when 6 in the Morning came out, that, and then also having a best-selling album, debut album, and then also him, doing the song For Colors, And he jokes about it. He says that people were so drawn to me doing colors that people thought I was in the movie. And he was like, I was just on the soundtrack. I wasn't even in the movie, but people gravitated to me so much that they thought I was a part of the film. And all I did was a movie. But then that song, Colors, was actually, it was nominated for an MTV Video Award. And then they also talk about, how Mario Van Peebles discovered him for New Jack City. They were in a bathroom, I think, at some restaurant, and Ice-T was talking with somebody in the bathroom, and what he said to this guy was just out of this world. I mean, he was saying that, when he said that you can rip me open and you can look at my intestines and look at everything inside of me, and if you find something inside of me that actually gives a shit what you're talking about, then I'll let you know. And this kind of blew Mario Van Peebles away. He was like, yo, and at the time, Mario Van Peebles was working on a project, which we now know today is New Jack City, and he wanted Ice-T to play the role of a cop, which, if you know Ice-T's history, that's like something completely foreign to who he was. But then again, he kind of had, he pretty much, had his reservations at first, because he's like, okay, what are people going to think about me playing a cop when I'm known to be outspoken, not about, gangster rap and black life, but also police brutality? How am I going to end up playing that kind of role? But then again, people on the streets also know the art of hustling. So he was like, okay, some of them are going to get the fact that, hey, this is a job, get in here, do what you got to do, make this money, make it happen. And another person that did commentary on this episode was the actress Vanessa Williams, who actually played the role of Keisha in New Jack City. And we also remember her from playing the role of Maxine on Soul Food, the series. So it was cool that she even, noticed the genius of Ice-T and said that even though he didn't have any acting experience, he was a natural and he was a professional, and he always delivered every time he was on screen. And, pretty much, I can even say for me, like, some of the best scenes in New Jack City was his scenes with, because the name of the character that he played was Scotty, who was a detective. And Scotty pretty much, he takes this guy named Pookie, who's pretty much a crack addict, who's played by Chris Rock. He kind of takes him under his wing, and he really is rooting for Pookie to not only get off drugs, but also to be a productive member of society. So it was cool to see that, definitely in that movie you can tell that Ice-T and Chris Rock had great chemistry, and they really played off of each other. And they both were new to acting, but they both did stellar jobs in this. And, New Jack City was a big hit. It also stars Wesley Snipes. And it was Ice-T's breakout role. So this role of him playing Scotty in New Jack City actually made Hollywood pay attention to him. Like, people saw something different in Ice-T. Even myself, because I knew him as a rapper by that time, but then when I saw him in the movie, I was literally drawn to Scotty, and I was rooting for Scotty, take Nino's ass down. That's how great, of a performance that Ice-T gave in that movie. The next movie that he ended up doing was Ricochet with Denzel Washington and John Lithgow. In this movie, he plays a gangster, and he plays, this gangster who Denzel Washington's character was a cop, and the two of them were childhood friends, but you can definitely, they actually had a scene where the two of them were playing off of each other because, one's a drug dealer, the other one's a cop, and yet even though they were childhood friends, you could see that they were worlds apart. But when the time came for them to take down the bad guy, who was John Lithgow, they came together and they handled business. And And he said that, he actually talks about working with Denzel Washington, and that Denzel Washington was a professional, and that Denzel Washington didn't come on the set with no ego or no airs about him. He was a guy who was all about the work and all about, bringing the character to life. And he learned a lot from Denzel working with him on Ricochet. So he talked about that. And then another thing too, is that, in this role of Ricochet, he originally only had like one scene. They loved his character so much and loved his performance that he ended up having 10 scenes and even stayed to the end of the movie. So that was very groundbreaking, because it really showed that, he had talent, and that he actually brought something to every film or every project that he worked on. He always brought his A game. And then he said that, after Ricochet, that actually after his second film, he started to build more self-confidence within himself. And then that's when, things took a turn after he came out with the song Cop Killer with his rock band Body Count. And you can definitely tell that it did start a firestorm, because it hit the White House. You had Dan Quayle, among like Charlton Heston and many other people who were speaking out against, speaking out against Ice-T, quote unquote, making a song saying it's okay to kill cops. But then we even seen that, Ice-T went through a lot in that time. I mean, the music industry kind of somewhat blacklisted him, because of that, and he even received death threats. And Ice Cube even talks about it, like just like we did in NWA, he received death threats for speaking out for Cop Killer, just like we did with Fuck the Police. And pretty much, he said, and like pretty much, Ice-T said that, look, in America, you have the right to say what you want, but understand that there are going to be consequences and ramifications for whatever you say. So be very selective as to what you say and how you say it, and when you say it. So he said that, but then they also showed, interviews early on during the time of Cop Killer, where he was coming out saying that, look, I'm not saying all policemen are bad, but I'm saying there are some bad ones out there, and these bad ones do not represent the code of serve and protect. It's more seek and destroy. And he just was very blunt and adamant about that. And during this time, he wasn't getting any opportunities in music because of Cop Killer. He was somewhat being blacklisted by music. But movies, it was a totally different situation, because Walter Hill, actually reached out to Ice-T and, for a role in this movie Trespass, along with Ice Cube. And that was a good movie too, because my mom loves that movie. And it was good seeing the two of them together, because it was like you had Ice-T being the founding father, and then Ice Cube coming after him with, being a part of NWA. To see the two of them in a movie together, and they both are great actors. I mean, it was great, because you kind of saw that, like, Ice-T's role was more like the elder, of the crew, and, Ice Cube's character being younger, was the hothead and was kind of like the loose cannon. And you kind of like saw them two play out in that movie. And it was a good film. And it was great because, Walter Hill was the director of, classics like The Warriors and Long Riders, the Long Riders. So it was cool seeing him being part of Trespass. And he gave them free reign to really explore and go deep with their characters, and they pretty much, did their thing. And then he also, in this segment, Ice-T talks about the art of pimping, and he says that pimping is not just on the street corner. Corporate America does pimping every single day, because they only respond when you're bringing in money. and when you have something that can bring money. That's when corporate America responds to you. And it's no different than being a pimp, who runs a salon. It's pretty much the same art form. And, he says that's exactly how Hollywood is run as well. It's all about what you really bring to the table. And is what you're bringing profitable? The next movie they talk about that Ice Cube did was Surviving the Game, and I have to say this is one of my favorite films from Ice-T because he plays a homeless man, which is a far stretch from what we know him as being a hip hop artist, and also from the work he's done previously in films. This was a role where, and he said that people, the creators of Surviving the Game were kind of hesitant for casting a black guy in it because they said it would kind of seem like, reminiscent of racism and bigotry that we see in the U.S. But Ice-T loved the script, and he said he wanted to play that role. And he said that it's a stretch for him because it's about, this homeless man who's like at the end of his rope, he's suicidal. He meets these people who give him like supposedly this opportunity to be a tour guide, but then he realizes he's actually a part of a game of hunter and prey, where he's the prey, and these group of people get off on the fact of hunting and killing humans. It's kind of like a sport to them, and we actually see him actually not only fight these guys off, but actually at the end he survives. Like I like the end scene where he says there's always one thing you have to do when you check a gun. And the guy was about to shoot at him, and because he put something in the gun backfired and blew his ass away. And then also he just walked. He's like, because he's walking with his back turned, and the guy is aiming a gun at him, and he's not even worried. And as soon as the guy pulls the trigger, it blows up in his face, and then he walks off, and he's like, always check the barrel. So I was like, that was like one of the best roles I've seen him in, and to see him fight off all these people was kind of like, which was rather interesting because we saw in the beginning of the movie he wanted to die. He was suicidal. I mean, he had lost his wife and lost his child. The man was at the end of his rope, but then the flip side to it is that when someone is trying to take your life, it makes you appreciate life a whole lot more, which was the irony of the role. And he executed it very well. And then they talk about his role in, Who's the Man as Chauncey, Night Train. Also, his role on New York Undercover. And I have to say, he did some stellar acting on New York Undercover because he was only supposed to appear in one episode. He ended up appearing in 3 episodes, and he played one of the worst gangsters, one of the worst criminals in the history of New York Undercover. I mean, because the first episode, he's running this cartel. The second episode, he actually kills, Malik Yoba's character. He kills his fiance, and then the third episode, he's trying to kill his baby mother, and also trying to kill Malik Yoba's character's son. And I remember I was a big New York Undercover fan, and to see him play that role, he literally made me hate him. Like, I'm like, can somebody kill this son of a bitch already? Because that's how much I hated his character, but it just goes to show how much of a creative individual Ice-T is, because he literally created a character that was hated. And we were happy once he finally, once Malik Yoba's character finally took Ice-T character out, because he was just creating all kind of mess, and he was just, this diabolical killer, and he pretty much had no heart or no cares for anything. Like, one of the worst criminals you could ever possibly run across is that criminal who cares about nothing and will do anything, as far as, destruction and murder. So for him to play that character like that was amazing. And Dick Wolf definitely it caught Dick Wolf's eye on how talented Ice-T really is, because we see that from that point on, in 1999, Ice-T was actually he actually earned an NAACP Image Award, for supporting actor for his role on New York Undercover. And then, him and Dick Wolf, who was the creator of New York Undercover, the two of them developed a very close bond, because he respected Ice-T, he respected his hustle and respected his approach to acting. Because pretty much Ice-T said that, look, I do my job. Me personally, I don't like when somebody comes to me with BS, so I don't go to nobody else with BS. I have a job, I'm being paid to do something. My job is to do what I'm supposed to do so I can get paid. So at the end of the day, you have a job to do it. And that's his attitude. He said that, look, nobody's going to give me nothing, nobody owes me anything, I have to work for everything I want. So when it comes down to me doing my job, I'm all about doing my job. Then they talk about the show Players. It was a short-lived show, but it was really good, though. And then, he got the break that changed everything when he got the role of Finn Tortiola on Law and Order Special Victims Unit. And his role was only supposed to have been about 6 months. It's now 17 years, going on even more, because it's like one of the longest running shows on television, and I watch it on Netflix. I'm a big SVU fan. As a matter of fact, it's the only franchise of Law and Order that I do watch, because SVU is definitely that type of show where you're going after the sadists and the creeps, the ones who molest and hurt children, some of the scum of the earth. I mean, even the type of people that they don't even like in prison. So that, I think, what motivated him, on playing a cop, because he was kind of hesitant about playing the role of a cop. But then, him and Dick Wolf had a conversation where, from the conversation, Dick Wolf was like, okay, do you like cops? And he's like, well, some of them, but a lot of them I don't like. But then he said that, but do you think that cops are supposed to serve and protect? He says, absolutely. And he says that, well, think about the kind of cases that this detective is going to be dealing with. And he says that based off of that, yeah, I can play this, because this guy is going after the creeps, the real scum of the earth, the ones who are hurting our children, the ones who are, who are raping and pillaging our community. Those are the ones that we need to take down. He says that, shoot, people in prison don't even like those kind of men or those kind of women. So, yeah, I'm all about doing what I got to do to take those down. So he's still, and the thing about Tortiola, which I like about him, is that he definitely has street edge. Even though he's a detective, he's definitely got a street edge, and he will rough you up if you cross him. So, and he's been doing this role for 17 years, and I have to say it's a great accomplishment, and something that it's something that I definitely love, because he really plays that role, and I don't think SVU would be the same without him. He actually got his second NAACP Image Award for his role on Law and Order SVU in 2002, and it just really goes to show that from that point on, he's also done many other things. In 2006, he actually had a reality show, Ice-T's Rap School, where he's actually bonding with a lot of these, suburban white kids around hip-hop and music, and the kids really gravitated towards him. And pretty much, there's in the show, he's kind of like, mirroring, the black experience versus the white experience. And he's saying that he doesn't immediately go into thinking that the white man is the devil. He says, judge a devil by his deeds, because the devil comes in all shades, which I thought was genius. And then he also had the reality show Ice Loves Coco, and then he did, this documentary on Iceberg Slim, which I recommend you watch, because that Iceberg Slim documentary was awesome. It was really good. and also The Art of Rap, which is another great documentary, which actually talks about the art of rap and the art of hip hop. And you see him interviewing all of these different, pioneers, as well as current artists in the rap industry. So I thought that was very phenomenal. And they also talk about the Geico commercial where he's Ice-T sitting next to a lemonade stand. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. But yes, this was a very good episode. And one thing he also ended this episode with, where he's saying that success is rented, and the mortgage is due every day. So you have to constantly show and prove every single time. Do not rest on your laurels, and that you have to be about your work and you have to be about your grind, because that's the only way to survive the game. So that's what I have for you guys. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to talk to you about it. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you can get notifications every time I drop a video. Like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I will be back with the next episode of Unsung Hollywood. So until then, everybody, take care.